FPL managers, we are looking at the top 5 players in each position for FPL. Let's get right into it. We are going to start with the defence from the bottom and build our way up to the midfield and then to the forwards. Now remember, this is just my opinion and I do not claim to be an expert, but I am fairly, a bit too obsessed with this game, so my opinion may carry some weight. I've ordered it into a graph here with expected data and actual data from last season. With the defensive data, we're looking at data per appearance. Then with the midfielders and forwards, it's going to be per 90 because I think defensive data works so much better when you do it per appearance. If you are confused at any point as to what any of these abbreviations mean at the top, feel free to check the description. It's all in there for you guys. So if you're kind of new to all these stats and you don't know what they mean, I've got you covered. Anyway, we're ordering this from top to bottom as in best to worst. So we'll start from the bottom. In 5th place, I've got Aina. I think he's the best route to the Nottingham Forest defence. He's probably not going to get any goal involvement, but him as a 5 million defender with secure minutes, he is the best to go for. Maybe Sells as well, but we're not going to do goalkeepers because goalkeepers is the most irrelevant position in the game. Just pick a decent 4.5 or 5 million goalkeeper. I personally like Trafford, who's just joined Man City from Burnley. If he's starting, he's going to be everybody's go-to. Anyway, back to Aina. Not really going to get any goal involvements unless you're lucky. He's from a good defence with a good fixture run, and he's the cheapest route to it. At least the cheapest player with safe minutes in that defence. We also have the new defensive contribution points to go through. Now, with Aina, he's not really getting a lot. He's not often going to get 2 points for defensive contributions. Milenkovic and Murillo may from time to time at 0.5 extra. I personally don't think it's worth the extra 0.5 million for those two because their numbers aren't super high. But when you look at a player like Tarkowski, who's nearly averaging 10 per game, that's really something to consider because he could be getting it more often than not, nearly every game. Above Aina, we've got Van de Ven. Spurs defence isn't good, let's be real, but they play home to Burnley in game week 1, and the fixtures after game week 2 ain't so bad either, and he costs 4.5 million, rotates nicely with Conceded as well, who is at the top of our list. That's pretty much all there is to say. I don't think he's going to get many defensive contribution points. And to be honest, the clean sheets I don't have high hopes for either. But then again, 4.5 million defenders, beggars cannot be choosers. Then Tarkowski, Everton defence is solid. And he's got loads and loads and loads of defensive contribution points per game. We're at the 5.5 million, I would argue. If he's a regular starter, which I think he will be, he's great value at that price. If you look at Mykolenko, who costs 5 million from the Everton defence, I just don't see a world in which you don't try to save an extra $500,000 just to afford Tarkowski for them defensive contribution points. In my opinion, Gabriel's underpriced. I think he should be at least 6.5 million. He plays for the best defence in the league and he is the most secure for minutes. He also has the most goal threat. While the Arsenal fixture run isn't good, they do have potential to keep a clean sheet against anyone in the league with the way they sometimes like to park the bus. And as you can see here, he wins in almost every defensive metric, defensive ones and goal involvements. He doesn't get many in the defensive contribution points, the CBIRs, which stands for clearances, blocks, interceptions. If you guys didn't know already, you need to get 10 per game to get an extra 2 points as a defender. Gabriel is not going to get 2 points from that very often, but he's going to get you reliable, consistent clean sheet points. A defender, you can probably own for 38 game weeks, providing he doesn't get injured. Konza is at the top of my list, and despite the first 2 games, they're not great. I think from game week 1 to 6, in general, Aston Villa do have the best fixture run. And like I said, he rotates nicely with a Spurs defender. The Aston Villa defence is also incredibly underrated. They massively underperformed clean sheets last season. Their home defence was one of the best in the league along with Arsenal. It's not something to be messing around with. I know the most selected defender in the game currently is Wan-Bissaka, and I've not got him in this top 5. And the reason I don't is because he's a West Ham defender. Like, fair enough, they play Sunderland in game week 1. What about after that? I mean, they're not really a team that keeps clean sheets, and I know that's kind of hypocritical of me because I've got a Spurs defender here and they didn't do too well last season for clean sheets either. But picking a West Ham defender, guys, Aaron Wan-Bissaka doesn't even get too many defensive contribution points per game. Okay, I just don't think after game week 1 he's going to give you any value, so I've not got him in the top 5. But if you disagree and you want to argue with me in the comments, fair enough, you go for it. So yeah, guys, I think every team should have Konza. He costs 4.5 million. $500,000 more than the cheapest possible defender in the game. Why would you not get him in to rotate with a Spurs defender or even someone else? Maybe you have a few premium defenders and when they have a tough game, you want to bring Conceded on. That also works perfectly fine. He's so easy and flexible to use and costs virtually nothing. This midfielder one is going to be controversial because Bruno is here, and I wouldn't even consider putting Wirtz near the top 5. So if you're going to get angry about that, you may as well just click off the video now. With Liverpool likely to have a front four of Wirtz, Salah, Ekitike and Isak, I just don't see a world in which Wirtz gets consistent points. And if you're like most players in the game who own Salah, do you really want to spend 23 million on Salah and Wirtz on just the Liverpool attack? If they have one bad game, you're guaranteed a red arrow. It's just not worth the risk this early on in the season. And I don't even have Salah at the number 1 spot, which people may disagree with. But Palmer with Chelsea's fixture run, for me, is easily the best midfielder to own in FPL. The way I see FPL this season, for game week 1 at least, I believe everybody should have Palmer with either Salah or Haaland. We all saw the Club World Cup final and how amazing he was, so when he's playing against a bad team in the Premier League instead of PSG, imagine what he can do. He doesn't top a lot of metrics, obviously Salah does, because Salah had the best FPL season of all time last season, but with the addition of new attackers in the team, I think the output is going to be taken away from Salah. He's still a very, very crucial player to own. I personally am still debating between Salah and Haaland. You know, it's a tough choice. I know most people automatically go Salah, which is fair enough, but I like to consider my options first of all. Also, I just realised we're starting from top to bottom instead of bottom to top like we did with the defenders, but oh well, we'll carry on from where we are. Yeah, Chelsea, great fixture run, Palmer on penalties on a lot of set pieces. The underlying data from last season isn't spectacular, but I can imagine that will change. Chelsea look like a very strong team. As for Salah, Liverpool don't have a great game week 2 and 3, but they have an amazing game week 4 and onwards. And if you don't start with Salah, then it's going to be very hard to bring him in. I think he is the second best midfielder to own, as you can see here on this list. I'm still debating in my head whether he's actually worth the 14.5, but still incredibly risky to go without, and is no doubt going to get so many points. That is why he is second on this list. In third is definitely going to be controversial. I think Ndeye is the best player to own in game week 1 in terms of budget midfield options, mainly because he has penalties and because he has an amazing opening fixture run. I think after game week 4, you could consider selling him to a different player like Kudus, Mitoma, you know, another 6.5 million midfielder. There's so many to choose from. But in the early stages, game week 1, Ndeye is the best to own because Everton have a great run of games. You also see on here, on the defensive contribution points, midfielders need 12 per game instead of 10. Ndeye's averaging nearly 8, which is all right. He's not going to get it a lot, but he will get it now and then. Morgan Rogers, incredibly underrated again. I said it earlier, Aston Villa from game week 1 to 6 have the best fixture run. Morgan Rogers is definitely improving as a player and will no doubt score at least roughly similar points to what he did as last season, maybe more, with the defensive contribution points coming in. Even though he'll probably get it like twice across the entire season, I don't think he's going to get it a lot. It will help him add to that point tally, and I just don't see a world in which he scores less or gets less assists than last season. Just make sure if you bring him in, don't bench him, because last season if you played, you all know what happened when you benched Morgan Rogers for a tough game. Me personally, I never had Morgan Rogers on my bench for a high scoring game because I'm an intelligent FPL manager. As for the bottom spot here, you know, most people expect to see Wirtz. I don't think he's near the top 5. Some people may expect to see a cheap CDM. I was close to putting Anderson here at 5.5 million. Very cheap option for players who's going to get defensive contribution points and the odd goal involvement. But looking at Bruno here, I'm way more intrigued by this man at 9 million. He is on every single set piece in the game, surrounded by more competent Premier League players than he was last season. And he's got the addition of defensive contribution points as well, and Bruno does very well for a midfielder. He's one of those players that's going to get you, you know, maybe the odd 4 points in the tough games where he's making a lot of defensive actions and a lot of ball recoveries. And in the easier games, you know, maybe getting a penalty to take, a free kick, a corner, scoring from range. He controls everything Man United does. So I struggle to see a world in which Bruno isn't one of the most consistent midfielders in this next upcoming FPL season. I may also be biased because I'm a Man United fan, but you know, only time will tell. Also, the fixture run ain't great, but hey ho, let's see how he can do. He plays Arsenal and Man City in the first 4 game weeks, which is not ideal, but when you think about it, if anyone's going to score for Man United in those tough games, it's going to be Bruno, or, you know, the other team's going to keep a clean sheet. Let's be realistic. Forwards now, ladies and gents. Some of you may disagree with this again. You know, my opinion is proving controversial time after time again. Like I said earlier, Haaland and Salah isn't a clean sweep for me. It's a very close call to make. Haaland has never started a Premier League season poorly. In fact, that's an understatement. He has started every Premier League season like the best player in Premier League history. It's unreal. So what makes you all think he's all of a sudden going to stop now? The opening fixture run for City is great. Haaland does cost a lot, and you know, his XG performance wasn't amazing last season. His goals matched his expected goals, but from a top striker in the world, you kind of expect an overperformance. Either way, Haaland is at the centre of everything Man City do, and they look like a much stronger team this season. Obviously, they've got Rodri back, and they got some more signings as well. And all of these signings look like they were made to supplement Haaland. So if you have a team with Salah in, Haaland isn't really going to be a player you look for. But if you have an FPL team that's not going to include Salah, that makes Haaland the most essential forward in the game, and that's why I've put him at number 1. Next up is Solanke. Now, Solanke wasn't amazing for Spurs last season. He was way better at Bournemouth. I think there was only one game last season where Solanke actually got more than 1 goal involvement when he dropped a 16-pointer. So the optimism isn't too high, but Spurs have a great opening fixture run. He is probably going to stink out in game week 2 and get a blank, but that Burnley home fixture in game week 1 could make it all worth it. It's one of them things where we're just going to have to see how it goes, because Wissa under Thomas Frank was insane, so maybe he can do the same for Solanke. I'm not 100% sure, but he is one of the, you know, maybe the only Spurs attacker with secure minutes in that front line, I would assume, because I don't know anyone else who can play striker in that Spurs team. Yeah, Pedro at Chelsea coming in at the same price, slightly behind Solanke. This was almost a coin toss decision. I consider these guys as good as each other in terms of FPL options. Yeah, Pedro, the data here was from when he was at Brighton, and he's moved club now, so it may not be incredibly accurate, but he is topping some of the metrics in the expected assists, you know, the creativity department, which is because, yeah, Pedro, while he is listed as a forward, could play as a winger, could even play as a cam, could play as a striker, which, you know, is bad. Your forward's getting less points for goals. He's getting 4 instead of 5, even though he may be playing as a midfielder anyway, but that sort of plays into his advantage as well, because with that Chelsea attack, there could be a lot of rotation, but when you have a player who can play in all 4 of those attacking roles, you've got a player who is less likely to be a minutes risk. In terms of João Pedro versus Solanke, I know it is a thing. I do prefer João Pedro as an option, just the slightest bit, even though Solanke is safer and more reliable because, you know, less rotation in that striker spot for Spurs. I watched the Club World Cup final and it infected my opinion just a little bit because I saw João Pedro play and he was tearing up that PSG defence. So I'm hoping that the next draft I make maybe doesn't have room for a 7.5 million defender, so I don't have to make that tough decision. Watkins in 4th, probably the most underrated player in FPL this season. I don't know why hardly anyone's picking him. The guy scored in pre-season friendlies already. His minutes per appearance is low. Last season, that was to do with the fact Asensio and Rashford were there, but I don't think there's any rotation for him this season. I also do believe he will be on penalties. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was on them last season, and I don't think anyone's come in to take penalties off of him. And we've had an Aston Villa player in every single one of these positions so far, and you already know why. It's because of the fixture run. And Watkins is obviously the main source of output when it comes to Aston Villa. Isak is at the bottom of this list. Now, he has said he's leaving Newcastle. I know that, okay? That's why I've put him at the bottom. If he goes to Liverpool, he would climb this list a lot higher and I would be considering him a lot more. At Newcastle, I actually don't even consider him top 5. I'd put someone else here. But the fact is he's not staying at Newcastle, but we need to talk about him. He could leave the league entirely, which is, you know, fair enough. I don't blame you. You could go to the Bundesliga and score twice the amount of goals as you do in the Prem, and it would help you stat padding. But if he goes to Liverpool, he is definitely going to be, I'll definitely put him top 3 options. The reason I'm not right now is because he's not guaranteed to go to Liverpool. I did kind of waste this 5th spot with Isak because he may not even be a top 5 forward. Either he doesn't join Liverpool, or he leaves the Premier League, or he stays at Newcastle. Either way, I technically wouldn't put him 5th. But when I was looking at the 4s to choose from, there's not many more than the 4 above him, so I thought I'd put him here as a talking point. Game week 1 and 2 simply just aren't good enough. You know, they're just not. They're terrible. And I know, like, if you come to game week 3 and want him for those 2 easy games, that's fair enough. You can't really transfer him in because there's no striker at his price point. Luckily, that doesn't matter anyway because he's not staying at Newcastle. If he joins Liverpool, then rest in peace to the rest of the Premier League. You know, rest in peace to Manchester United's title charge that was about to happen. We'll have to settle for 2nd place instead. Let me know what you guys would think of Isak if he joined Liverpool and whether you consider him in your FPL teams. Anyway, guys, that is all from me today. Let me know what you think of my lists. Let me know where you disagree with me. Let me know where you agree with me. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.